Hello and welcome to another episode of From the District with State Senator Suzanne Weber. I'm joined, as always, with our state senator who is obviously not from the district this week.
No, I'm in
Senator?
Salem this week. And you
Oh,
wouldn't have
yes, you
believed
are.
what happened I guess it was before I went to Education Ways and Means.
The power go out?
The power's gone out in a couple of places in Salem, but the sky turned black and we had this white stuff pelting the ground and building up, and thunder and lightning. It's a pretty gosh darn amazing from the fourth floor up here.
Yeah. Well, happy March from Oregon.
Right.
All right. Well, we have been doing some happy, enjoyable podcasts, as
Yeah,
is
we
our
have.
custom at the beginning of the session. Things are happy, things are going well, everybody's getting along, but there's
Right.
always that time when the tide starts to turn and the fighting begins. And Senator, I think we have reached that time.
I think so. We're at the 8 week, I believe,
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
116 days left,
Mm-hmm.
at least, or right around in there.
Yeah.
And it's time to turn the dial because we've got some deadlines coming up here. We've got the
Mm-hmm.
21st. If your bill isn't scheduled by then, it's most likely dead.
Yeah.
And so there's some hard work.
Unless it goes to another committee, like it goes to rules or
Yeah,
one of those
one of those.
non-policy committees.
Right.
Yeah, which sometimes it does. Well, I want to talk today about two bills that are particularly bad that are either just had their hearing or just about to hit the floor. And then I do want to talk a little bit about Measure 114 that just had
Yes, good idea.
a decision
It's
from the Court
a
of Appeals.
decision from the Court of Appeals.
Yes. So let's start out with SB 916. SB 916. Go ahead and tell us. This bill is headed to the floor of the Senate. It's already made its way through committee, so you will be voting
Right.
on it soon. Tell us about it.
Yes, we will. And let me tell you, there are many, many people that are very, very upset about this because what it does is it provides unemployment for people, unemployment benefits for people who are striking.
Right.
So if you go out on strike, you don't miss any of your salary or your benefits or anything. You are kept whole. So the question is, from so many people, why go back to work?
Right. Now,
And
this
what
would make it.
incentive is it?
I haven't looked deeply into the bill, but the unions often provide strike pay, correct?
Yes, they do, but this is
So,
different.
but they would
This
be getting
is,
in addition to it.
yeah.
Well,
Let me tell you, there is a big flap about this, and I agree. This is not right.
right. There really has to be some motivation on both sides to get it figured out, right?
That takes all the motivation away.
Right. So you got it.
You're not
Obviously,
losing anything.
the employer,
There's no incentive to go back and negotiate.
right? The employer is obviously losing out because they're losing out on business. They're losing out on activity by the employers, and they're losing out because it just
Right.
doesn't look good. So there's that
Yes,
loss.
and you
And
know,
until
look
go
at
ahead.
the school district strikes that we have had recently. Think about how many people that has impacted. Think about Portland. Think about what the strike has done to Portland's school district. Okay,
Right.
now compound that.
Right.
There's no way that a school district of that size can recover from something like that.
Well, and the other thing is when a union is voting to strike, they are taking into consideration, are our people going to be able to handle a strike, right? Are they
Right.
going to be able to survive on the strike pay?
Mhm.
Well, now isn't it just why would they not vote to strike? Why wouldn't they?
Exactly. Yeah, let's strike and
What
have a few days off
worries me is that
with pay.
that it just not only are strikes going to last longer, there's going to be more of them, and they're
Yes.
just you're
And
just
what
in a
does that
situation.
serve?
Yeah,
It doesn't serve anyone. And
I
in the
really,
schools, it especially doesn't serve our children. You know, when we're looking at our ranking for reading and math in this state, when we're looking at our absenteeism rate, uh, that's not helping anything.
yeah, and I think you're talking about the schools. We remember the Portland the Portland school district, the Portland Public Schools came to you the session before and said, "This is how much money you need," and quite
Right.
frankly, you gave them every penny, and then they came back and the teacher said, "Well, that's not enough," and went on strike for an ungodly amount of time.
Yeah, and you know, this is something that has built up over the years because teachers have not been acknowledged significantly enough with their salaries. You know,
Yeah,
they're working, they're teaching our most valuable infrastructure item, our kids, and their uh, their well-being has not been taken into consideration. But this is
yeah.
a step too far.
I think it's important to differentiate the members who um, a lot of the time they don't want to deal with this and the leadership. And I think this is being pushed by union leaders. It's not being pushed by individual members.
Right,
And I think if we saw anything with the last presidential election, you know, there is a substantial disconnect between union leaders and union members. Union
right.
members voted for President Trump pretty overwhelmingly,
Exactly,
and
they did.
union members did, and union leaders certainly did not.
Right.
And that is a disconnect that I think is not lost on a lot of people. So I think it's important to mention that we're not beating up on the hard-working folks who are doing the work.
Absolutely not.
It's the people who are making the decisions, and
Right.
quite frankly, are buying members of the legislature
And
by
yeah,
donating vast amounts of money to their campaigns.
that's been pointed out quite graphically within the last few weeks. I delivered a remonstrance on the floor about it. Yes.
Right. Yep. Yep. Well, SB 916 has it has passed committee, so it is headed to the floor in the next few
Right.
days, most likely.
Well, most likely we're thinking it's probably going to come on Monday because now we
Yes.
have changed. We are
Yeah.
not just doing 2 days a week. We're
That's
doing
right.
Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So it'll come on Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday.
Right.
Because
It's a
as the
note we
bills mount up, then we're going to be spending more time on the floor.
right, and we're recording this, so we should note on March 13th, Thursday, March 13th. So yeah, so that would be most likely on Monday. That's coming.
Yes.
Okay, next one we want to talk about is HB 2548. It's still over the House and it is only just gotten a
Yeah.
public hearing, but holy smokes, this is an important bill that we need to keep an eye on. I want
Yeah,
to walk through it just a little bit, if
please
that's
do,
okay.
because, you know, I talked with Rep. Wright this afternoon about it and listened to his concerns about it. And there are a lot of them.
Yeah. So what this bill does is it establishes the Agriculture Workforce Labor Standards Board. So we have a labor standards board. This is the Agricultural Workforce Labor Standards Board. It uh, directs the board to establish minimum working standards for agricultural workers. Okay.
Yes.
Provides remedies for agricultural workers alleging a violation of the minimum standards.
Right.
Okay. Requires the board to conduct biennial comprehensive review to determine whether to adopt new minimum standards or revise the existing standards. Okay. Directs the board to establish uniform training for requirements for agricultural workers, supervisory and non-supervisory employees, and establish a
Nightmare.
process. Yeah, by rule. So
Nightmare.
just agencies doing it,
Right.
certifying workers organizations to provide the training to agricultural workers. Now we're not done yet,
No,
but
you're not
this is
done.
where it gets really bad in that agricultural workers are having to be trained. Like,
Yeah. Is that
sometimes
not
you
the
just
most
learn on the
ridiculous
job.
thing?
Sometimes you just learn on the job, right? I mean, that's 9 times out of 10, an
Well, that's
agricultural
just
worker
it.
doesn't go through a class.
the job goes with the farm and it changes from farm to farm or day to day or hour to hour. How are you going
Right.
to be able to do that?
Right. Right. Um, okay, let's move on here. Requires the board to submit an annual report to the governor and the legislative assembly, summarizing the results of the comprehensive review and any action taken by the board in the prior year. That's normal and everything. So here's where it gets bad again. Prohibits employers from terminating an agricultural worker unless the termination is for cause. Here's a problem.
There, yeah. Point it out
That's
clearly,
that
please.
maybe that's okay on a dairy farm in Tillamook where the cows work 24/7,
Exactly.
365. But when you have a harvest season,
Totally different.
how do you lay them off?
Right.
You can't.
You can't. You cannot do it.
Right. And just finish it up. Sets forth conditions that must be satisfied in order to determine the existence of a cause, and provides remedies for agricultural workers alleging a retaliation or violation of the cause for standards, and declares an emergency. So there's no getting ready for this. It just happens.
Yeah, there have been big campaigns recently. This is killing farms. This is
I saw
killing
the Farm
farmers.
Bureau.
This is
Farm Bureau
killing
was losing their
agriculture.
the Farm Bureau is losing their mind over this, and rightfully
Yeah.
so.
It's like, do you
Holy
want to eat or
smokes.
not?
Yeah.
Do
So
you
this
have enough money to pay for what you are requiring with this bill? No.
no. So this just had a public hearing yesterday, the 12th. People hearing this probably are not going to be able to submit comments for the record, but this is on the this is currently in the House Committee on Labor and Workplace Standards. So encourage folks to go to
Right.
bolus.org and legislature.gov and look up the House
Exactly.
Committee on Labor and Workplace Standards. You're not going to be able to submit for the record, but you
here's
can
what you
email
can
all
do.
the members. You can email all the members.
Yes, and here's what you can do. You can hit that little button at the top of the page that says testimony.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can read the testimony that has been submitted, and you can see what organizations, what people are in favor of it or are against it, and all of the ramifications for the bill going forward.
Right.
They shoved the overtime bill down our throats, down our farms' throats. This is another effort to try and, kill us.
Yeah. Really happy to see members of the Farm Bureau. I see some Tillamook farmers on here, some Hillsborough farmers. So some farmers from the district who have submitted comments here. Glad to see the Farm Bureau and Farm Bureau members getting involved. We also have chambers of commerce, the Beaverton Area Chamber of Commerce here being against it. I'm just paging through. Vineyards. That's another one. Vineyards.
Vineyards. Yes.
That is a big one. Grapes are only comes out in certain times. So HB 2548, friends, go to
look it up.
The House Committee on Labor and Workplace Standards. Go to those members and
let them know how
them.
You feel.
Tell them to please vote no. Do not advance 2548.
Read the bill, because there are unintended consequences with almost every line that's in that bill.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about Measure 114. Now, Measure 114, for everybody probably remembers, is a measure from 2022.
An initiative, yes.
Measure 2022 that passed, that did some substantial constraints on Second Amendment rights.
Right. Remember that was the big initiative year, the 112, 113, 114, and what it did to our state.
Yeah,
And
so Measure 114, if for those folks who don't remember, it requires a permit to purchase or acquire a firearm. It bans a sale, transfer, and importing of magazines that are capable of holding 10 rounds of
10,
ammunition or
yes,
more. Um, and those are the big aspects of this. Um, so what happened was the law was put on hold by a judge in Harney County.
yes,
Uh,
the courts,
and then, of course, that was appealed to the Court of Appeals. We expected that to happen. The Court of Appeals ruled, unfortunately, that 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 114 should go into effect. Now, right now, the folks who want to overturn Measure 114, which I think certainly, Senator, you're a part of, now have 35 days to appeal.
right,
They don't appeal in 35
and,
days, the law goes into effect.
right.
Um, I think
So
we could probably expect that
I think we
they're going
can.
to.
I think we can.
This
And I
didn't
think
happen
that people
very much.
people need to be paying attention. I can't tell you the bill numbers right here of the gun bills that will also be coming up in this session.
Let's talk about those next week.
Let's do that. I'll write
I'll
that down.
make a note
And
of
you
that.
make a note too. Because there are some issues that are coming forward with the gun bills that people are alarmed at.
Right.
Just like there are issues with education and some other things that are coming up that.
Yeah. This bill, like I was just saying, this measure did not pass by very much. A yes
No,
vote of
didn't.
50.7% and a no vote of 49.3%. So it
Yes,
was very, very, very
very
close.
close.
So so what? Most likely, it's going to go to the Supreme
Well,
Court. The Supreme Court will make a decision. But so let's
there are
assume
some other options that could happen. I mean, and one of them would include another ballot measure.
right. So that's what I want to talk about. Is we get questions like, "What are you going to do to stop this?" Well, first thing we're doing right now is this right here. Is we're telling people
Right,
about what's happening. Is that folks need to know what's going on. The only thing that if the Supreme Court does find that this is constitutional, there's only one thing that's going to fix it, and it's another ballot measure. So that
right,
really is a clarion call to all folks who care about their Second Amendment rights to get
right.
ready for something like this. And get ready means several things. One, certainly get a hold of the NRA and the gun rights organizations and let them know that you'll volunteer, you'll do anything that you can. For
Right,
those
because
folks
it's
who
going
might
to mean
listen,
collecting signatures.
yeah, but it also means, and I have run ballot measures before. I have fought ballot measures before. It is expensive.
Yes, it is.
Certainly, everybody, for those folks who are of means, if you're listening to this and you believe in Second Amendment rights, open your checkbook. I can
Right,
tell you, we're not talking about a few $1,000s. We're not talking about tens of thousands of dollars. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars to run a ballot measure in Oregon. It will cost millions of dollars.
yes,
So, encourage everyone. We want to encourage everyone to know about this case, to know that it's probably coming to a conclusion soon, and also note that Kate Brown and Tina Kotek appointed all members of the Oregon Supreme Court. So we could probably guess where this is going to end up.
oh yes,
Um,
oh yes,
and be prepared. If we want to fight this, it's going to
yes,
require another well crafted, well thought out ballot measure. We can't just go off half cocked
right.
and just do
And
something just
and
to do something.
you also have to, be aware of the rules of creating one of these initiatives to get on the ballot.
Yeah, you
Because
do.
there are numbers, there are dates, and then there are people who expect to be paid for collecting signatures,
Yeah.
and then those signatures have to be validated before it can actually, in a timely manner, be put on a
Yeah.
ballot.
Two ways to get onto the ballot. One, the legislature refers it. Not going to happen. Forget that.
Not
Two
gonna.
is actually collecting signatures. And
Right,
that's why you're right, Senator. You cannot just go out this and not knowing anything. You really need to
You,
approach organizations
yes,
who have done this before. So the
right,
NRA is a great one. Local gun organizations who can raise money and know what they're doing politically, very important, and have good connections to other
right.
Republican members. I know we're talking. I mean, this is kind of red meat stuff. And the reality is, there isn't anything you can do individually except for
No,
really rally the troops and encourage them to prep for this next step and to get behind the groups who are going to be doing it.
right. And I'll tell you that there have been some ballot measures that we have tried ineffectively to be able to overturn and find different ways. 113, we went all the way up the courts. We had it cost us a lot of money to try and undo that. It didn't happen, and
Yep.
we're still dealing with it, and
Right.
that will go into the future.
Well, 113 is the one that banned, unfortunately, you for running again, and your colleagues who denied
Right,
quorum a couple sessions ago. That fight went into the state courts, and all of the state. We have not had a Republican governor since the '80s, and
right,
usually a judge will retire midterm, and the governor will appoint them. And so if you as a Republican, get into the court system in Oregon, in state court, you're probably not going to win.
right.
However, if you can get into the federal courts, that's a different world. And
There's
I think we
yes,
tried that, and I don't think we got anywhere there either.
we didn't get anywhere. No, we didn't.
Yeah.
But you know what? We're still working to see if it can be made fair because there's no
Mm.
rules. It's just
Yeah.
you're out.
Well, yeah, that's what we were just talking about. Is let's say you had a colleague who from Eastern Oregon. She got stuck in a snowstorm, couldn't get to Salem for 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
She asked.
That's 10
She
days
asked for. She asked for to be
to be
excused and was
excused.
granted that.
Yes.
But
However, we have case history on people being excused for absences and then, a time after having it reversed. Like
right.
going to your grandson's wedding in Pennsylvania, and because you're going to be the officiant and get it approved months ahead of time. But then you leave town to go to the wedding and find out that your permission was canceled.
Well, now, like you said, we've got case law on that. Um, let's say I don't think President Wagner would do this. Obviously, we have some disagreements with him and don't like some of the things he's done in the past. But I don't think he would do this. Let's say you have somebody from a swing district who can't get there for whatever reason,
Yes.
and it's excused, and election time comes along, and you find out the president finds out before the session's over, hey, there's a really good candidate who wants to run in this swing district. You should revoke those 10
Right.
excuse and make it so they can't. There's
They
nothing
can't
saying
run.
they can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say they would never do that, but what if they
That's
did?
human nature does not dictate that.
It has not been our friend.
No.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Senator. I think we did
I
a
know
good
we're
job.
trying to
I think
keep these shorter and
yes. Katie will beat us with a
yes,
wet
she will.
noodle otherwise.
Yes, she will.
So yes, everyone, we do try to keep these we started 30 minutes, now we're trying to keep them to 20 minutes, 25 minutes. But we do these every week during session. So we will
Yeah.
be back next week. We'll talk about gun bills like we promised, and maybe we'll throw in some happy stuff too.
Let's try it.
We'll try.
Okay.
It's getting that part of the session is hard.
Yeah.
We'll try. Okay. Well,
Okay.
thank you very much, Senator. We'll catch you next week.
Oh, have a good weekend, Adam, and thank you very much for doing this once again. I so enjoy our time together.
Always enjoy it. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next week.